What's happening in the market is really a bit of what I would call a Rocky Balboa moment. So the oil markets were absolutely floored by COVID. Of course, we all know that. Demand recovered, but slower than people expected. And that's what's playing out right now as the market gets back on its feet here at the end of 2022. Actually, demand isn't quite back to 2019 levels. And I think that's the context that we need to remember when we think about the oil markets are just about back at 2019. The last piece of the market to come back is jet fuel demand on the one hand, as you rightly guess, and Chinese demand on the other, which has been very, very slow to come back. But just as the market's getting back on its feet, it's confronted by 20-year lows in the yen versus the U.S. dollar, all-time strength in dollar for many people. This is an not all-time strength, but once-in-a-generation strength for now currency, which does have a big effect on demand. Everybody else is having to pay up for those dollars now on top of their relatively high oil prices. So the markets are very, I would say, challenged by the fact that just as it's beginning to find its feet again, there's a whole new set of problems that are confronting demand today. So this is absolutely a demand story for oil. We're currently trading back at pre-invasion of Ukraine levels, comfortably so, and heading into the winter, barring that cold snap you were talking about, potentially lower prices still. Now, we're still forecasting on average $80 a barrel for 2023 at the moment, but there's very significant downside risk, I would say, at this point in time.
The biggest wild card out there is probably Mother Nature and what the Northern Hemisphere winter delivers. I know we could get a little bit wonky talking about weather derivatives, but under what scenario in Europe especially and in North America could we see prices take off again?
Yeah, I think that the biggest tangible wild card there is, of course, natural gas as it relates to the weather. And that's true for Northern Europe. It's true for Northeast Asia as well. As I was talking with somebody in Italy about this last week who studies this stuff, very closely. The issue with the gas market is when it's cold for everybody in terms of a consumer perspective. And when it's warm for everybody. So if we go into a very cold winter, we could not only see Europe struggle to meet its gas demand, which we know because, of course, the Nord Stream pipeline is closed, Russian supplies are curtailed, inventories are looking healthy, but you can eat into that very quickly in a cold temperature. But Japan and South Korea also could begin to feel the pinch there. Now, Northeast Asia is interesting because they've turned to coal burning and other sources of fuel ahead of the winter. Asia's positioned in a very thoughtful way coming into the winter, but very cold weather could upset the balance on all that very quickly.
There's a substitution effect that could put oil back in the driver's seat. Mandy has a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Given the fact that Russia has turned off those gas spigots to Europe, Dave, what are some of the alternatives that Europe can turn to be able to deal with the energy crisis come this winter?
So Europe is in a fascinating existential moment, Mandy, I would say. I mean, I watch closely what's going on in the UK, for example, and the amount of money the UK will spend subsidizing natural gas and to some degree electricity prices for consumers around the country, that could easily fund a major expansion. I say easily. It could conceivably fund a major expansion of alternative fuel sources. Now, of course, there's good reasons to protect consumers through the winter this year, but that same money could be going into enhanced investment in wind, in other forms of renewables, even nuclear power. My point there, Mandy, is that natural gas as a key baseload supply of energy into Europe is monumentally challenged at this point in time. And even those alternative gas sources we've been talking about in recent months, like U.S. LNG coming in, not only will that take 2 or 3 years to arrive, but even in the past week or so, we've heard some U.S. investment projects hitting some troubled times and getting off the ground and coming to market. So I think gas in general, there's a big question mark over whether Europe will continue to remain reliant upon it for the years to come. And if it does, where will that come from? The U.S. is not looking as strong a reliable source as maybe it was just a few weeks ago.